5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's time to count down the top 5. Brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Pretty excited about this. Today we're going to be talking about the most successful WCW tag teams. This is Eric Bischoff's list of the top 5 most successful tag teams. And we want to hear from you who are in your top 5 WCW tag teams. Let us know below. But coming in at number 5 on Eric's list of the top 5 WCW tag teams is the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags. They won the world titles 3 times between 93 and 95. They were the champs for over 300 days. We know them as hardcore brawlers who brought the grit to WCW here. Of course, they did have 2 stints, one that sort of predated Eric's run with the company. But man, when you're here with them and they're enjoying all this success, they had some really classic matches. Missy Hyatt was their manager once upon a time, but the matches with Harlem Heat were fun. But I don't think anybody will forget seeing those matches with Cactus Jack and Max Payne. A lot of violence, a lot of chaos, and seemingly always in the title hunt. Why were they number 5 on your list, Eric?
On a personal level, they were really the 2 guys that I first became friends with in the wrestling business. They were working in AWA in Minneapolis at the time, and I think like my 2nd or 3rd day on the job, we ended up going out and having a beer after we were done working, and got to know them and just enjoyed being around them on a personal level. On a professional level, they were dependable as hell, meaning, are you going to get 5-star matches out of them? No. Can you absolutely depend that they're going to light the audience up and get a great reaction for television? Yes. And that was really my responsibility, is getting those crowd reactions. And they were so dependable, predictable almost, that they would just, you could always count on them. I think another reason why I thought so highly of them is because they were versatile enough to work as many dates in Japan as I could get them. Because they were kind of an attraction. It's a little hard to build really good story with guys who are specialists, if you will, at that hardcore style. It's not story premise friendly, right? But we could utilize them when we needed them. But rather than sitting around for months at a time when we didn't need them creatively, we could put them on a plane and they would be excited about it, and they'd go over and work Japan, which was good for the New Japan WCW relationship. So they were so versatile as performers. They were dependable as a television act, and they, from a financial perspective, they were really inexpensive because I was making money off of them when New Japan was using them.
Nasty Boys come in at number 5 on the WCW list of the top 5 most successful WCW tag teams. That's according to Eric Bischoff. Who's your number 5? Let us know below. But coming in number 4, it seems like there's a lot of respect here at play for Eric's number 4 on the list of the top 5 WCW tag teams. It's Doom with Butch Reed and Ron Simmons. They only won the tag straps once back in 91. They held them for quite a while, I guess, 280 days or so. But I guess they technically won them in 90, lost them in early 91. But they had classic matches, man, whether you're talking about the Steiners or the Freebirds or the Horsemen. Like Halloween Havoc 1990, I think a lot of people kind of forget. That's when we had Sting versus Sid for the big gold belt on top. And Ric Flair, fresh off of losing the title just a few months prior to Sting, where's he? He's in a tag match with Arn against Doom. That tells you the respect that Flair had to want to work with guys like Butch Reed and specifically Ron Simmons. Why is Doom coming in at number 4 on your list here, Eric?
For me personally, because of Ron Simmons. I didn't get a chance to know Butch Reed. I did get a chance to know Ron Simmons. First of all, just look at them.
Yeah.
Physically impressive and believable they were together and individually. But man, I just always have been a huge fan of Ron Simmons. To this day, I still get to see Ron 3, 4, 5 times a year at different conventions and autograph signings. And he's just, even at this stage in his life, we're all a little bit older, right? We're all a little heavier and all that. But man, when Ron Simmons walks into a room, the room stops, whatever they're doing, and looks over to check this guy out, because he has this aura, is an overused word as of late, but Ron Simmons in particular has such an aura about him. He commands respect, and that's probably your answer. He just commanded so much of my respect as a character and as a human being, but as a character, just so believable.
He's a unique individual. I don't think there's a lot of guys who carry as much almost universal respect as Ron Simmons does. It's like, I don't know. He may be like wrestling's Clint Eastwood or something.
Yeah,
like,
that's a good way of saying it, because he's just got that. I mean, literally, he walks in a room, he doesn't even have to say anything.
yes.
There's just all kinds of energy around him, and then he opens his mouth, and he's got that James Earl Jones baritone that just, if you weren't impressed with the physical aspect of Ron Simmons, the minute he said hello, it was like, whoa, he's got a voice to match. He's just such an impressive person. And you obviously look at his athletic background and all the things that he accomplished in Florida, playing football. He's a personification of what a wrestler should have been, particularly back in that day.
Let's talk about number 3 on Eric Bischoff's list of the top 5 most successful tag teams in WCW. No surprise, we all know they're going to be on the list. Eric, you've got the Outsiders, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash in the number 3 spot. They won the tag straps 6 different times between 96 and 98. That means they held the belts for nearly a year between 97 and 98, over 500 days in total. These are sort of the founding members of the NWO. Clearly that turned not just WCW around, but the entire wrestling business around. I mean, these guys are, the longest tag reign of the era, and well-deserved. I mean, you want to talk about revolutionary, what they did for WCW and what they meant for WCW just can't be overstated. I'm honestly kind of surprised they came in at number 3. Why are the Outsiders number 3, Eric?
One word: chemistry. I mean, the Outsiders, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, were the definition of a perfect working chemistry. First of all, they complemented each other, and they had worked together long enough, and they thought alike. They could read each other's minds in the ring. They could anticipate what was going to happen long before it actually happened. Not just because they laid the match out, but reading the room, listening to the audience, taking advantage of an opportunity in a match that you didn't anticipate. Their instinct and their chemistry, and the fact that they were really focused on getting each other over as well as their opponent when they worked with them. But just chemistry. It's unbelievable. They had unbelievable chemistry together.
Let's talk about number 2 on Eric's list of the top 5 most successful WCW tag teams. Probably no surprise. I think they're going to be on everybody's list. The Steiner Brothers. Let us know in the comments where you rank the Steiners. Eric's got them here at number 2. Hard to argue with their success. 7 times the tag team champions. I mean, they were maybe the gold standard for athleticism and intensity. And they wrestled all over the place. You could see them in WCW. You could see them in Japan. You could see them in the WWF. But I think most of our listeners, myself included, when they think about the Steiner Brothers, they don't think about those other federations. They think about WCW. And, it's not just suplexes. But when Scott Steiner broke out the Frankensteiner, it felt like it was a revolutionary move to the wrestling business. It felt like it made every match from then on must see, because you wondered, is he going to do it again? Like, this is years before the Canadian Destroyer captured our imagination. The Frankensteiner, man, I don't think he gets enough credit for that, maybe with the benefit of hindsight. Why are the Steiners number 2 for you, Eric?
Much like the same reason the Nasty Boys are on the list. First of all, they were so freaking good together. They complemented each other, and not like Scott and Kevin did necessarily, but Rick was down to business, not that flashy, still very effective, very intimidating. Didn't have to say much to get a lot of attention. Scott was flashier, and a little more dangerous on the mic, as we've certainly learned, later on in his career. When I say dangerous, I mean in a good way, an entertaining way. But yeah, Scott Steiner, I just saw a clip a couple weeks ago of a really, really young, like maybe first or second year in the business, young Scott Steiner doing the Frankensteiner. When I first got in, it was so impressive. It was nuts. Because, in today's world, we'll see moves like that and you go, oh, yeah, I saw something like that last week, or somebody else does that too, and maybe they do it a little bit better, whatever. But you didn't see anybody Scott Steiner's size doing anything that looked like a Frankensteiner. When Scott did it, it was like, whoa. So physically impressive. And then to pull off a move like that, that's typically a small person's type of move, smaller person. It was just so freaking impressive. But I think from a business perspective, consistency, much like I said with the Nasty Boys, you knew you were going to get a reaction where you needed it, when you needed it. You knew the Steiners were going to deliver together. You knew their matches were going to be incredibly entertaining. And you also knew, more often than not, that Scott Steiner was going to give you something to look freaking awesome on camera. And by the way, much like the Nasty Boys, Japan loved them. From a financial point of view, they were very good for WCW because of the relationship with New Japan. I could utilize them so many different ways.
By now, we probably know who number one on Eric's list of the most successful tag teams in WCW history is. Probably no surprise. Coming in at number one, it's Booker T and Stevie Ray, Harlem Heat. 10 times your WCW World Tag Team Champions, the champs for over 600 days. I don't think a lot of people maybe would have predicted their success when they first made their debut in 1997. And I know eventually Booker T is going to go his own way as a singles player and have a lot of success there before becoming the world champion. He'd become TV champion, US champ, and then the world champ. But as a tag team, Harlem Heat had incredible matches and feuds with the Steiner Brothers, with Nasty Boys, with the Outsiders. They probably represent the tag team division at WCW's peak more than anybody else, don't you think?
Yeah, maybe toss up between them and the Steiners, but absolutely, Harlem Heat. Again, I'm saying the same things with a lot of these people, but it's why they're in the top five is consistency. As a producer, writer, head of creative, whatever you want to call it, or part of creative, when you sit down and scratch your head and go, okay, what are we going to do next week? Or what are we going to do next month? And you look at your roster and you figure out all the different ways to mix and match people up and try to come up with stories in the process. The Steiner Brothers and Harlem Heat were like two of the teams. It really didn't matter. You could create a story around them or with them, and they would deliver. The audience responded to them every time. Booker was so good on the mic. I just loved his work on the mic. And they hauled wood, man. They hauled a lot of wood in WCW, meaning cash. They delivered a lot consistently.
Let's talk about some of your honorable mentions on the list. I think everybody agrees that Harlem Heat belongs at number one, but on the honorable mentions list, the Hollywood Blondes, Steve Austin and Brian Pillman. They were only the tag champs once. It was a pretty short, but damn, was it an iconic run. They had really fun flair for the gold parodies. They had great matches, but it's the personality that we get to see here from these two guys that I think really leveled them up. Prior to this, I would argue that Brian Pillman was considered quote unquote, just a cruiserweight or a light heavyweight, I guess was the term at the time. But he showed here, he had a lot more personality than just the Bengal tights and a great match with Jushin Liger. And Steve Austin here sort of broke the mold from his maybe more quiet, reserved, stunning Steve Austin character. And we got to see some of the personality that we know he would just break wide open as Stone Cold Steve Austin. What did you like so much about the Hollywood Blondes, and why are they on your honorable mention list, Eric?
The only reason they're on the honorable mention and not at the top is because they just weren't together long enough to generate enough revenue to be at that top position. But man, did they bring out the best in each other. It's like 1 + 1 = 5 with those two. I don't know why. I don't know what it was about them working together, but they absolutely brought out the best in each other.
Another on your honorable mention list are the Enforcers. This is Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko. They were the tag team champs. Only one time, only about 90 days. But man, you want to talk about two veterans. I know you have a lot of respect for both of these guys, and you go way back with Larry Zbyszko. I'm kind of surprised they're on your list, though, of honorable mentions. Why did you think so much of the Enforcers, Eric?
They were my personal favorite because of what they represented. And maybe it has a lot to do with the era that I came up in and what I appreciated, subjectively as a fan, first and foremost, but their reality, execution, believability, all of the things that I believe are requisites to be a great professional wrestler, whether you're a tag team or single. And in their case, this case, so much credibility. They could deliver in the ring. Again, consistency. We're going to keep hearing that word because when you get to the top 3, 4, 5 of anything, you've got to be consistent. And these two were, but this is the character they represented. Like Arn's interviews to me, when I first got to WCW, I would hope I'd get to TV and I'd go to find myself a format and I would literally look forward to an opportunity to do an interview with Arn. I remember the first couple I did with him because I didn't know who he was. I didn't get a lot of, Crockett Promotions or WCW even in Minneapolis, when I lived there before moving to Atlanta. So Arn was like a new character to me. And the first couple of times I did interviews with him, it was like, oh man, this cat makes me believe. And I'm standing right next to him and we just rehearsed this and I still believe it. It was magic. Same with Larry. I was more used to Larry because I worked with Larry a lot in AWA. I think Larry was really responsible for me ending up in WCW, believe it or not. But or had a lot to do with it at least. But those two together, their style, their approach to a match, their interview qualities, their interview ability, they were like complete packages.
Rounding out your list of honorable mentions, we'll rapid fire some of these, were the Public Enemy. They were only the tag champs for a few weeks, but man, they were a staple in the early WCW days of Nitro. And clearly we were capitalizing on some of the success they had in ECW and some of the table celebrations that later the Dudley Boys would sort of take ownership of. Stars and Stripes with Marcus Bagwell and the Patriot. They also make the list at a very challenging time for WCW. And like, these aren't super profitable days, but man, you want to talk about a very serviceable babyface tag team that fit the era.
And before we shift gears, I want to say one more thing about Marcus Bagwell. We showed him in a graphic there with Patriot Del Wilkes. I had a chance to talk to Marcus a couple of weeks ago, two or 3 weeks ago. And I'm going to backstory this just a little bit. When Mark had his leg amputated, I found out about that. Again, social media, I'm looking at a picture of Mark laying in a hospital bed with his leg cut off below his knee, which was shocking in and of itself to me because I wasn't aware that this was even a possibility. But the most shocking thing to me when I saw that picture was the fact that he was smiling. So, wait, what? It was weird enough that, I'm looking at this guy who I'd known for so long and friends with, laying in a hospital bed with part of his leg gone. But the strangest part was how happy he seemed to be. So I talked to DDP. I said, Paige, fill me in. What the hell, right? So Paige gave me the backstory. And I had this, because it's my weird sense of humor. I thought, you know what? Knowing Mark the way I know Mark, I thought, I'm going to text him and see what this was, whenever this was. It was sometime in the spring, I guess, or I lost track of time, but maybe late spring, early summer, whenever it was. I sent him a text saying, hey, Mark, I'm working with an independent promoter and who's looking for a one-legged wrestler and wondering what your schedule looks like in October. So I sent him that text, and I never heard back from him. And like a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking about that. In fact, I was in Connecticut. I was down the street from WWE headquarters. I was there to do some stuff for A&E. And that's when the thought crossed my mind. I thought, man, I should call Mark, because I may have, just because I saw him smiling in a picture doesn't mean he's happy. Maybe I hurt his feelings or offended him. And I started feeling really bad, because I started thinking about that, how devastating that could be to have someone that, call you up and make fun of you for losing your leg or making a joke out of it. And I called Mark, and we had the greatest conversation. I was so inspired by listening to Mark and how he's adjusted. And he was more optimistic than any time I've ever had a conversation with him at any time in his life that I'd known him. He was so positive, so optimistic. We were talking about, he was telling me about, when he goes to the gym now, he doesn't have that, mangled leg getting in his way and throwing him off. He was actually thrilled at the fact that he finally got that portion of his leg amputated, because it opened up so many other opportunities for him. And I said to him, Mark, you should be talking to people. It's such an inspirational story. So if you have a chance to see Mark at a convention or an autograph signing, I encourage you to spend 5 minutes talking to Marcus Alexander Bagwell, because your life will be better because you did.
Shout out to Bagwell, man. We absolutely love his story. Know he's going to be a great success story, and continue pulling for him. So proud of him turning over a new leaf in life. And then last but certainly not least, easy for me to say, last but certainly not least, the insiders make your list. And this is also a kind of forgettable time of WCW. It's when they're on the downhill slope of 2000 and 2001, but a real mega pairing of Diamond Dallas Page and Kevin Nash. That's a pretty big time dynamic duo there of personality, don't you think, Eric?
No doubt. And again, similar to in a way to Scott and Kevin and DDP, they were so committed to each other. I mean, they just truly wanted to get each other over. They were both very generous with regard to what happened in the ring, and making sure that they both would come off better when they left the ring than they were when they got in it. If they would have been, had that tag team been around a couple years earlier, who knows where they would have ended up on this list. But yeah, they're a great team.
Speaking of great, you're going to love this top 5 list. We want to hear from your great top team lists right here below on YouTube. Drop us a comment below. Who are your top 5 tag teams? Eric Bischoff's got Harlem Heat at number 1. Who's your number 1? Steiner Brothers at number 2, the Outsiders at number 3, Doom at number 4, and the Nasty Boys at 5. It's a pretty tough list. I love the Nasty Boys, man. I mean, a guilty pleasure of mine. How could you not have respect for Ron Simmons? I think the Outsiders, the Steiners, Harlem Heat, they all kind of speak for themselves. But where would you rank them? Let us know below right here on YouTube at 83weeks.com who your top 5 teams are. Hey, did you know you can own for less than your current rent? We can help at savewithconrad.com. Stop throwing your money away on rent. You don't know any wealthy renters. Start building wealth for your family with my family at savewithconrad.com.